Hello and welcome. Welcome to the inside of a Commodore 64. This is an old original. It is. There's a reason that we're in here. I have connected just recently a C-Link 2 to this Commodore 64, and it requires that you do a little work in the inside, which of course would void the sacred, irreplaceable Commodore warranty. But, you know what? Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Also, I have no doubt that if you bought this from a dealer or Richwell Telecommunications and said, I can't do this, they would put it in for you. Okay, I'm going to do a little zooming and a little movement here to show you better what you gotta do. So, there are these two clips. I'm sorry, it's gonna be a little jerky. Oh. And they must be connected. The This one, as it says, goes to chip U14 pin 15. Well, this is a 16-pin chip, and you start counting at this side and go down. So you get down to 8, and you start going up. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. It's second from the end. And then the little clip, and I suppose I could video it, but it wasn't pretty. It's a nice little clip. You just push it out, and you clip it around or onto the pin, and then it's done. And it's easy, but it's not easy. It is. Let's see if we can go closer. Oh yeah, we can go a little closer. So there, that is the one that goes to U14. It is on the 15th pin. Let's slide over a bit. This other one, as you can see, although it says it's upside down, you go to the 6510, pin 28. Let's rotate a little. There we are. So, pin 1, pin 20, pin 40. So you count at the bottom here, and if you watched me put this in, it took a while because I'd go to do it and then I'd lose my place, and anyway. But it's on the 8th pin. It's the same thing where you just take the little clip, push it out, find the pin, have it, grab it, done. Done, 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 done. And then if we slide over, the wires have to come through the cartridge port, and they will fit. The idea that I found works best is tip up the machine so you can see the bottom, take the little clips and squish them through before the link is in, before anything is in. Just squish them through, because then once you've done that, you can install the C-Link 2. That wire is not really necessary at this moment, but there it is. I think that goes to the disk drive. Anyway, so there's the C-Link 2. You can see the little wires are coming through. Most of the C-Link 2 is kind of inside. This thing to the side, I think with a special cable, which is probably no longer available, of course, from RTC, but chances are somebody online has something showing something somewhere, somehow, some way. And I believe that goes to printers, other printers. And they did that, I would bet, because the bus card did have a very similar thing that came outside. And I think it also went to printers. The bus card was much bigger. Doesn't mean it's better. Size is not everything. What I really like about this new C-Link that I've never used, never had before, is supposedly it doesn't take any memory. So I don't know where it hides itself or what it does, but somehow it does. It does and does, it does. And the reason for a C-Link is, of course, so you can connect to IEEE disk drives. That's the primary reason. And why did that happen? Well, when the 64 and the VIC came out, first the VIC, then the 64, there were an awful lot of people who'd spent an awful lot of money on disk drives for their pet. And while they wanted to go to the new machine and see what's what, they didn't want to spend a whole bunch more on disk drives. They would rather have an interface. And as they already had a PET, they did, with disk drives, they had a PET to IEEE cables. That's what this is here. And so they would rather get an interface of some sort and be able to connect to their 2031, 4040, 8050, 8250, or variations such like that in various parts of the world. That's what they wanted to do. That's what they did. Now they did have a V-Link for the VIC, and kind of absurd hooking up a 5K machine to an incredible sized bunch of drives, but hey, people needed it, people wanted it. RTC made it. I'm sure they sold not as many as the C-Link, but I'm sure they sold enough. Anyway, here's the C-Link 2, and it goes in the cartridge port, and once you have the PET to IEEE cable connected, then you can connect to, well, first of all, you could go to a printer, but mostly people went to disk drives. These were used often by people who ran bulletin boards, who had lots of drives connected. And here, I've said this before, this is something I never thought of way back when. And I don't even know if it existed, or that I knew it existed. But inside the C-Link, if you type in IEEE for IEEE, it will go and communicate with the IEEE devices. And then if you type in serial, SERIAL, it will communicate with the serial devices. And you can put this in programs. So if you ran a bulletin board, this little thing basically doubled the number of drives you could have connected to a Commodore 64 from 4 to 8. You could have, say, a 1541, 1571, a 1581, maybe two 81s. Storage. And then, if somebody needed something that was elsewhere, the program just has to say IEEE, and it could be hooked up to a bunch of 4040s or 8050 or 8250. Anyway, basically you could have, on the serial side of things, 4 devices, device 8, 9, 10, 11. On the IEEE side, you could have 4 devices, device 8, 9, 10, 11. And, I mean, that could even include the 9060 and the 9090 hard drive that we used to use on the Bradley Brothers bulletin board system long ago. I never thought of this. It just never occurred to me that, hey, this is not just a great thing to connect the drives, but wow, we can connect lots more drives. And oh, I wish we'd taken pictures. We should have taken pictures long ago in the basement of my grandmother's house. If you look at the December 1984 issue of the T-Pug magazine, you can actually see a picture of my brother and I in front of what was at the time the Bradley Brothers bulletin board system, and it wasn't in the basement of my grandmother's; it was in the back bedroom. But it did move to the basement. It did, and it's funny. There was a fellow who came along. And he said he was going to be moving in upstairs, and he was like, "Oh well, that's a fire hazard. You can't have that on all the time." Well, it had been on for years and years, and everything was fine. And yeah, it's like, just looked at him like, yeah. As I've said many times, I can handle stupidity and foolishness from children, students, and others that, young people that I encounter and work with all the time. But adult stupidity is far harder to handle. It just is. Anyway, of course, the bulletin board kept running exactly as it was. It did. So, there it is, the C-Link 2. You know what? I don't know if anybody has redone these or not. I really don't know. The other thing I think these C-Link 2s, is I think they, on their own, managed to kind of make networking possible with one big drive. So if you had schools were big on this. They get a bunch of computers, that was all fine, but they really wanted to be able to have those computers connected to OneDrive, or a bunch, maybe in the school I was at, I think it was, the lab had 24 computers grouped in 6, I think. Maybe it was 8. I think it was 6. Anyway, and then they had OneDrive. And they had a system there were a number of companies that made these things to let you share. And I think the Link 2 let you, if you had Link 2s and appropriate cables, I think it also acted like a network thing. I think, but I don't know. So I could be wrong. These things happen. Anyway, if you are ever going to find a Link 2, or if you have a C-Link 2, and you are not comfortable connecting the little cords inside, well, then don't. Find somebody to help you. I know there's no Commodore dealers around to do it for you now, but there are people who are handier and not terrified. And one thing I do hope that, if nothing else, that some of the videos I do show you is that, you know what, you don't have to be scared of opening up such a computer and connecting little things like this. It may not be the easiest thing, but as long as you have the power turned off, and I mean the safest thing is don't even have the power supply plugged in. Make sure you double check, triple check, maybe even take a picture with your phone and blow it up. Make sure you're on the right pin, and it will be okay. And taking out the 3 screws to open up the machine, it's okay. You can do this. But anyway, if you are not comfortable, then don't do it. Don't do it. Anyway, as I said, this was very handy, and that the stickers were still on here. Pin 15 on U14. And, oh, here's another thing. If you want to find where U14 is, whoa, look at the circuit board. This could be a little shaky. Hang on. On the circuit board, every chip, where are we here? There is something written here in tiny little things. This is U13, U14. Guess what? U15. And so just look at the board, and if you're not sure, don't do it. But it should be, and yes, you might need your reading glasses, as I do, to see these things. But this is definitely U14, or it may be UI4. What does it say on it? U1. No, it says 1-4. And over here, if we slide a little bit, you'll see that this one says the 6510, and the number is on top of the chip. It says 6510. But also, they're surprised in a way they didn't put, besides the chip number, they didn't put the chip designation, which I can't read from here. I think it's U7, but I really can't read it. Yeah, I think it is. I think the 6510 in this machine anyway is U7, and then the RAM chips start at U8, U9, U10, So, from what I have found so far, this is a fine little device. I am pleased with it. I am. I'll try and zoom gently out so we can finish and show again the circuit board, the wire, and way off in the distance, the C-Link 2, C64-LINK 2, by Richfield Telecommunications, where, yes indeed, you could buy an element for your oven and pick up a pet on the way home, or a 64, or a VIC-20, or one of their many interfaces. And they did programs and things and stuff, and yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, as I said, this is a very early original 64. I think it's, where are my glasses? 326298, I think, revision A. Where are my glasses? Where are my glasses? Ah, whatever. Fine, dandy. Anyway, but from what I'll say this again. From what I know, here it is. No, you can't see that there. Anyway, revision A and revision C are common. Revision B, not so. Because way back when I had the oldest Commodore 64 that actually had a serial number. It was a Revision B. I've never seen another Revision B. This machine belonged to Jim Butterfield, and when my brother Rich and I helped him move, he passed it on to Richard, and eventually, years later, he passed it on to me. So, anyway, the video on these early boards is notoriously not as good. And also, this one here, actually I will do this. Let's go over here. This one here, as soon as I cranked it up, I noticed that there was flicker on the screen. And the flicker on the screen, from what I know, was corrected by not getting rid of the flicker, but making sure that the flicker flickered on the same color that was the background rather than the characters. And the reason is this chip here. This is a 901227-02, and I believe very shortly, very quickly, any such chip in a 64 was soon a 901227-03, and then there was no flicker. And I was quite happy to see the flicker. When I first got my first 64, I remember seeing the flicker, and you know what? I didn't care. I did not care. I started playing with sprites and doing all kinds of things, and the flicker, who cares? It just, who cares? And I was not using a monitor, I was using a television. Probably black and white. Probably. But yes, indeed, these older machines, which sometimes are in the silver label 64 cases, notoriously have not great video on the 1701 and the 1702, and I don't know why. I just don't know why. There is a place underneath the video enclosure that you can tweak things and see what's what, but some of the later versions of the board with the 64, it's so much crisper and cleaner and glorious. Anyway, I do not know how many of these chips, the O2s, are out there, but I was pleased to see that this one had one, which means it has not been altered, it has not been upgraded, it has not been changed. There's the 6510 with its little clip. I don't know if I can do this. I'm running off the table. There's U14 with this little clip. And ultimately, they're going to be on an angle. They are. There's the wires coming through. And there is the 64C-LINK, or 64-LINK 2. If you look at a lot of the old magazines, you will see advertising for these. And it's funny, now that it's too late and I've already done this, I wonder, what's falling? I wonder if I should have wiped this off. Maybe this was a little slimed. Oh well. We only do what we can do. We do. Alright, well thanks for coming to this tour of the inside of this Commodore 64, along with the C64-LINK 2 by Richfield Telecommunications. Peter Smith was indeed a character. We also affectionately called him Mr. Green Jeans. I'm sure he did well with his various products, and he was a special part of the pioneer days of the world of Commodore. Have a lovely day. Bye for now.